Good morning. Today is Wednesday, September 24th, and this is Devotions from St. Paul Evangelical Lutheran Church in Kyle, Pennsylvania. I'm going to take a passage today from Luke's Gospel. Luke is going to have Jesus talking about ways that we worship and the things that we do about that with specific examples. So I'm going to take a passage. It's going to be from the end of the 20th and the beginning of the 21st chapter of Luke's Gospel. In the hearing of all the people, he said to the disciples, "Beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and to have the best seats in the synagogues and places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses and for the sake of appearances say long prayers. They will receive the greater condemnation." Then he looked up and he saw rich people putting gifts into the treasury, and he also saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. He said to his disciples, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for all of them have contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, has put in all that she has to live on." Jesus talked about different forms of worship that we still use today. Prayers and banquets and giving. And it seems to me that the common thread through all of these examples is it's not really what you do or how much you give. It's your motivation. It's where your heart is when you do that. You take the example of the scribes first, and he described their dress. Okay. It's an interesting subject for me, and I'll tell you in a minute. But he described that as they wanted to dress up so that people would know that they were important. And then he says, but then they were devious with widows and orphans, and they stole their houses. And you can't do that, especially if you're a leader in the church. And then he talked about prayers. And, you think about it, there's nothing wrong with long prayers. But they did it at the sidewalks. They did it in public where people would see them. And they did it by themselves. It wasn't like they were leading a congregation. Jesus says in other places, when you pray, go into your closed space, into your own closet, and pray in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will answer. It's not something to do for recognition. And it's not something that has to be long and eloquent. Paul writes that the Spirit prays for us even when we don't know what words to use, because God reads what's in our hearts. Now, on this idea of dress, when I was teaching, I used to tell my kids, you dress the way you think the event's going to be. If you think it's important, you dress up, and if you don't think it's important, you dress down. And of course, I was in a Catholic school, and they wore uniforms, and so they didn't like that because they had to dress up every day. But as I told them, they were saying, or at least the people who said they should wear uniforms were saying, this is important. We're going to look like it's important. We're going to look like it's important to us. Same thing for church. I don't think that Jesus cares a bit about what people wear to church. But people should care what they wear, because they say with what they wear how important the event is. Now, your heart can be right and you can wear dress down clothes, no problem. But your heart can be right and you can wear dress up clothes and say, This is important to me. And it doesn't matter because God knows in your heart what you're saying, regardless of how you dress. Now, think about this idea of giving. It's funny that this should come up in the middle of our stewardship drive. And in a month, we're going to make intent cards to talk about how much we plan on giving. Those who gave a lot gave out of their abundance and probably gave something more for show than anything else. At least that's the implication. But this poor widow had 2 copper coins, and those were the lowest value coins in the system at that time, and she put them in. And as Jesus said, all that she had to live on. Now, whose heart was right? Well, we don't really know about the rich people. You can be rich and give generously and have a right heart. So we can't make a judgment about that. But we know about this widow. She thought what she was doing was critically important. And so she gave all she had. We need, in this next month, before we make our commitment, to make the same thoughts about what's important to me about giving to the church. Why do I want to do this? Not how much can I spare, but how much value is it to me to support the ministries that the church has? It's important that the ministries go on. How much can I do to support them? Put all this together. When we worship, we do things, we say things, we have a meal called communion. We do all of these things. And a lot of them we do over and over again. And there's a possibility for it to become just routine and we just do it. But it's important, I think, that when we do this, we value what we're doing because God knows what's in our heart. It's important that we make a special effort for ourselves, privately, individually, to be meaningful when we worship, to be meaningful when we pray, to be meaningful when we give, and to do it with a generous heart, so that it really is worship and not just going through the motions and filling a form. This reading that I had from the 20th and 21st chapters of Luke's Gospel challenge us. They challenge us by giving good examples and bad examples. And they challenge us to think for ourselves. What do we mean to do when we worship God with our time, our talents, and our treasures? I hope you'll read it. I hope you'll think about this, particularly in this next month. Thank you.